They're on to me, dude. Those guys are sharp as nails up there. You can't put anything past them. Oh my God, dude, I'm freaking out. I am so stressed out. I feel like I'm having a panic attack.
You want to talk about stress? You want to talk about stress? Okay? I've stumbled onto a major company conspiracy, Mac. How about that for stress?
What the hell are you talking about?
This company is being bled like a stuffed pig, Mac, and I got a paper trail to prove it. Check this out. Take a look at this.
Jesus Christ,
That right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay? Pepe Sylvia. This name keeps coming up over and over again. Every day, Pepe's mail's getting sent back to me. Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. I look in the mail. Well, this whole box is Pepe Sylvia. So I say to myself, I gotta find this guy. I gotta go up to his office. I gotta put his mail in the guy's goddamn hands. Otherwise, he's never gonna get it. He's gonna keep coming back down here. So I go up to Pepe's office, and what do I find out, Mac? What do I find?
This month was GP Nagoya, the third of 4 GP events in Japan. Since the event was a 10-minute train ride from my place, I figured there was no reason I couldn't go. I wanted to run something other than Sherry for it. It's not that I don't like her deck, I just hate playing nothing but mirror matches all day. I decided to take red-green Kirik after testing with some friends of mine from both the US and Japan. Japan's meta is weird and doesn't always follow what the rest of the world is doing. I planned around what I saw at GP Fukuoka, which was Sherry variants with either red or blue. The white build that had been topping in the West wasn't being played by many people and wasn't popular in Fukuoka. Ayu and Lumia are also universally loved rulers in Japan, so I needed a deck that could either invalidate them or keep pace with them. Kirik was easily the go-to for that. I tried a myriad of different builds from mono-red to red-black, red-white, and even tinkered with red-blue at one point, but ultimately decided on red-green just because of how strong counterspells are in the meta right now, as well as giving access to Addition Destruction. Shackles and Lightning Cave are kind of a bitch when you want to go fast and awaken your spells. So, let's break the deck list down. There are a lot of 4-ubs in here. As a friend of mine put it, consistency is key to aggro, and I can't think of a better way to describe the deck. Sylvia is the main playmaker. She's an exceptionally strong 2-cost Swiftness Resonator that can help get damage in with her block prevention ability. Outside of Sherry, that is. Piggy is the go-to hard mull choice against everyone's favorite bookworm. The reasoning is that all of the dolls in Sherry's hand have quick cast, so she can punish Sylvia by simply playing a now boosted up Eva after Sylvia's block prevention had gone on stack. It ends with them having a 7-7 or 8-8 and me having a dead meme.
Yeah, I got boxes full of Pepe!
Piggy can get around this by giving himself flying. The downside is that he'll probably die next turn when Eva can just swing into him. The deck runs a lot of burn to circumvent the fact Kirik can't just aggressively swing against Sherry without getting stopped by an overpowered doll or just simply having the attack negated. Shooting Stars sort of helps get around dolls, but loses in the long run since Sherry's 3-cost is stronger than Kirik's. And also her 3-cost has no downside attached to its higher stats.
Fuck you!
In a worst case scenario, I figured I could flip Kirik and clear face. Since his restock effect checks your missing counters on resolution, I could do 2500 damage to their board, enough to wipe out a couple of major threats, or at least clear out one before the refill and have enough to sit on for the next thing that tried to block me. Howell Pig and Dragonoid Doctor are the counter refill resonators for the deck. The deck makes use of a lot of spells and abilities that require strength counters, so I needed a good way to reliably recover Kirik so he could restock. Pig also runs the benefit of being able to dodge the steal effect on Resonator Ayu, as well as having relatively decent stats for a 1-cost. Doctor put in a lot of work and acted as a decent beater on top of letting Kirik restock and constantly dig through the deck for burn spells. The green package is your standard fare. Laurite cancels abilities, Favors catches dolls and other quick cast spells, and Severing prevents my opponent from overextending. There's not really too much to say here, this stuff hasn't really changed too much over the past year. The battle arts are pretty standard too. 4 Dragon Palm gives access to Resonator and Player Burn, and High Speed is a hard to counter burn spell since it's not quick cast. I opted to drop copies of Play Dead in the main for High Speed, since I expected to rely more on my spells and my Resonators for damage in most of my matchups. In total, there was 4,000 damage worth of burn between the 3 High Speeds and 4 Dragon Palms, assuming I got all of them off. A lot of the side options were intended for specific matchups. Kaim was meant for Kirik mirrors since he doesn't get wrecked by Dragon Palm and can steal something for the turn. All of Kirik's big playmakers are 2-cost, Sylvia, Biale, Piggy, and Flying Dragon. Taking one of those with Kaim can almost ensure about 2,000 damage if played properly. Cross Counter was mostly for the Ayu matchup since it nullifies her damage for very little cost. I originally had Burn to Cinders here, but figured Cross Counter would work better since Kirik can dig for it with his effect. The Lightning Strikes were meant for Sherry matchups where I knew my field wouldn't be doing much and I needed the extra reach elsewhere. And the Rapid Growth was also for fighting Sherry, or anyone else who was running Final Battle. But without further ado, let's get into the actual tournament report. Round 1 was against another Nagoya player who was running Ayu. This was one of the matchups I wasn't too terribly afraid about. I knew he was playing a mid-range variant from testing, so I could easily out-aggro him. Consistently being able to grab high speed and Dragon Palm let me continually keep his field clear and also do a good 10 to 12 damage a turn. I took game 1 pretty easily. Game 2 he saw Ice Shackles in his opening hand, which hindered my ability to dig. I wasn't able to hit an addition removal card and ended up losing game 2 rather quickly because of it. Game 3 was a repeat of the first. He never saw Shackles or Lightning Cave, so I was able to very quickly beat him down and close the game with a bunch of burn damage. The thing to remember about Ayu is that they have a limited amount of counter options. You can be greedy against her as long as you have resources open to deal with her on her turn. He knew he had to let a lot of the burn go through because he'd need his counters to stop me from hitting Ayu with Fluorite or stopping him from boosting her with spells like Rapid Growth and Fighting Spirit. Kirik's raw power was able to overcome Ayu and I took round 1 in a 2-1. Round 2 was against another Nagoya player running a Scarlet Impact Turbo deck. I actually really like this deck and I think it'll get a lot stronger when the next set drops in a few weeks. He definitely had the surprise factor on a lot of people since Scarlet is pretty rare to see, but I knew I just needed to stop him from playing Ramp Resonators and swing for as much damage as possible. Awakened Dragon Palm let me kill off Sacred Elf and also burn at the same time. There were a couple of turns where I opted to restock my counters instead of calling a stone, just so I could continually awake all of my spells. Falling behind on Will for a turn or so didn't hurt me too much because of how cheap all my main cards are. I ended up taking this one in a swift 2-0. I might try to cover this deck in the future, especially with the new Welser Resonator coming out. It turns this slow combo into a pretty terrifying OTK. Round 3 was against my first Sherry, and they were actually running the white variant that I was hoping not to see. It's easily Kirik's worst matchup, but it's even worse in Japan. You see, the ruling for how Kirik restocks his counters when flipped is ruled differently over here than in the other 2 major regions that play the game. For the US and EU, the X is considered undefined until resolution, but in Japan the X is considered defined. This means if you flip with 10 counters on Kirik, then chase to the restock to do 1000 damage, you only gain 5 counters back. I was hoping to remove a Lorite blocking Piale and still have enough counters left to stop a potentially incoming guard doll. The judge ruled against the refill going to 15 and I was unable to take my move back. Kirik came in tapped with only 10 counters on him, and I called the guard doll correctly. It was played at my end step and then swung into and killed Kirik the following turn. I had no will to God's art. I still won that game from burn spells, but now I had to play the rest of the event knowing Kirik was severely gimped, something that would come and bite me in the ass in the next round. I lost game 2 and 3 off my opponent hard mulling to all his Eva and guard dolls. There was nothing I could do against Resonators with stats that big while also staring down a bunch of damage prevention, counters, and destruction effects on speed dial. I left round 3 with a 2-1-0 record. Round 4 was against another white Sherry. My opponent was actually the champion of the Fukuoka GP. I was dreading the matchup when I saw him flip over a Gusting Skies. He ended up hard committing to flipping over Stories though, and he turboed out a Jin by turn 3 with all its effects. After that he proceeded to play Orphica to blink Jin out and back in. Piale was the only Resonator in the deck who could reliably kill off Jin, but he never had enough of a life deficit for her to matter. At one point I had an opening to destroy Orphica and Jin on board with Kirik, but I wouldn't have had the counters deal with the Eva or Guard doll that I was sure he had in hand. I ended up not flipping so I could restock counters for high speed, but it wasn't enough. Between Orphica, Jin, and the onslaught of dolls, I was unable to get through to him and lost 0-2. The point distribution by the final round was a complete mess. There had been a lot of draws, and making it into top 8 required me to win and then for the player next to me, my round 1 opponent, to also win. If he lost, then a friend of mine he was going up against would go into top 8 instead, but if he won, then I would go into top 8 since I had beat him in the first round. I was against a Red Sherry build, the one major build that I was prepared for. Red Sherry runs discard and destruction, but none of that matters that much against a hyper-aggressive Kirik. Being able to dig for battle arts offsets the amount of discard the deck has and keeps you from going negative. The amount of damage Kirik can put in early game also forces them to either preemptively play Valentina or Rachel. Sylvia allows you to get around their blockers and force them into a corner a lot earlier than they'd like. I ended up flipping Kirik early in both games to help apply pressure, since he can get out quite a lot of damage. I also didn't have to worry about any dolls in the deck since so much of it is based around discard and destruction instead. I took round 5 2-0 very quickly. I ended up finishing 10th place overall with my friends going into top 8. It was a struggle. Sherry is exceptionally hard to play around because she can be both hard control and aggro at the same time. The Kirik ruling really hindered what I could do and stopped me from flipping over in my 2 losses in places where I might have been able to push for game in another region. Or who knows, maybe I'm just bad. I've been told that how the effect works, or rather how the X part works, isn't clear in the CR and will be discussed with the upcoming ban list that drops in the new set. So, if they fuck over Kirik, guys, I'm really sorry, kinda my fault. Sherry is definitely a problem. I don't hate the ruler or even the fact that she can be piloted in a bunch of ways, but I do dislike that she can get away with so much because of how blatantly overpowered her cards are. I'd personally like to see Eva or Guard Doll banned. Both are way too strong for what they do. There's not a single resonator that can match them stat to cost, and many of the ones that do tend to come with drawbacks. I'd also drop Jin. Even though there are obvious counters to Jin, it forces the meta into a format where only Sherry can really thrive. Green and black is pretty much her color now, and she's effectively knocked out the other rulers who can also use those colors. Jin also having 3 triggers instead of 1 makes it difficult to stop since you can't Lorite every effect. Jin pushes for a playstyle that goes against Sherry's design with her extra deck and creates an unhealthy environment. I like the idea of Grimoire, but I hate its execution. Only a few of the story cards work as intended, and those that don't are horrendously broken and kill too many things. I find it ironic that Powerless Dragonoid actually hurts Kirik the least out of any counter-based ruler because this card kills all the mana rulers from Lapis Cluster, Feyre, Millium 2, quite literally, and makes Rhea near unplayable due to how slowly she generates mystery counters. Kirik has multiple in-archetype ways to restore his counters, but the other rulers do not. Evil Elemental Uprising also doesn't exactly punish Gil. Listing that the card cannot be chased doesn't stop Gil from using the grave to produce a will in response, since will production effects don't use the chase. Gil also has a cheap 2-cost resonator that can reverse the effect of Uprising while providing him with other benefits. In reality, the only thing this hurts is other decks that make use of the graveyard as a resource. Then there's cards that have story typing that probably don't need it. Honestly, outside of Sherry, the game is relatively balanced and fun. Tier 0 has its dominating ruler, but Tiers 1 and 2 have plenty of potential and unique ways to play. The game is honestly getting better. The problem just tends to be that the design team seems to really love green more than the other colors. I know I'm way off base from where I started this video, but all of these things were what was running through my mind at GP Nagoya. The turnout for the event was pretty small, just 26 people, but most of them seemed to genuinely enjoy the game for more than just the prizing they could receive at the end of the day. It honestly surprised me how few players dropped during the event, and even how many stuck around after Swiss to simply play pickup games with each other. It's a mindset I wish I saw at more North American GPs.